Hi guys, it's Shayla J. We are back on Quantum Magic, and I am so excited because I have Johnny Anton here today. And Johnny, you are doing amazing things right now. You are helping entrepreneurs shift their paradigm in sales, in how they're really approaching the economy today. You have helped entrepreneurs get up to over $100 million in high-ticketed products selling. You are doing crazy stuff, and I just had one of your trainings not too long ago, I think last week already, and it was mind-blowing. All of our girls that you got speaking to were just so grateful for everything you had to say. And on top of that, you are the co-founder of throughu.org, which is a nonprofit building schools and water wells and now hopefully medical centers. That is insane. How are you?
Hi Shay, you're so you're so fun and energetic. I love your energy, love the love. I can just hear the love from you. I feel like if more salespeople listen to your podcast or working with you, they can just see how to be natural and how to be
Oh,
someone who really cares and authentic. So thanks for having me. I'm
absolutely.
honored and very pleased to have served your community. I'm so glad that they got a lot of value out of the training.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to hearing what some of their results are in the near future. And I'm excited to speak with you today.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. So I kind of want to just dive into your brain and your story and just kind of let us know how did this all start for you? How did you get into coaching people and helping people really shift their paradigm and mindset and how they're doing sales and where did it start for you?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like, when you have a very like cultural past. I mean, like most people look at me, they're like, oh, he's just an American Irish guy. He's got a red beard. He's got to be like Irish. And, most people don't know this about, my family are refugees from Iraq. And they came here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm 100% Iraqi from a village called Baghdad, which is like north of
Wow.
Baghdad, 20 miles in the like Mosul, like near Mosul, Iraq, which is 98% Islamic country. And I come from the 2% that's actually the original, like almost like Australians or the Aborigines of Australia. The Assyrians from ancient Mesopotamia are from that land. And so ancient Assyria is where my family and culture is from. And so my first language is Aramaic. And and so that's why that's interesting, is because my whole culture was one of the strongest empires and the most powerful empires that was thriving. And then when Christianity came about, they threw their arms and became all about surviving. And they've experienced actually 3,300 genocides, more genocides than any human culture, ethnicity group combined, right? And most
Wow.
people don't know that because it's history from 5,000 years ago. So the contextualization.
Oh, we lost you. Got a little frozen. Johnny's frozen. Oh no. Temporary technical difficulties. Oh, are we
Uh-oh.
back? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. So yeah, so my culture came from being in this thriving, purpose-driven culture of being the most powerful empire in the world, other than the Persian Empire, right, and the
Right.
Roman Empire, to surviving and running away.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah,
And I would have never guessed that about you either. So that makes it so much more cool that you have that backstory. Wow.
yeah, and yeah. So growing up, I heard my mom tell me the story about how her dad, Estefanos, which is my middle name, got kidnapped at when she was 7 years old. Her dad got kidnapped and waterboarded because of his religious beliefs in Christianity by radicalists. And the funny thing is like there's so much misinformation out there when it comes to Islam and when it comes to violence. And I'm not going to get in too much into that political battle, but most of my friends growing up and most of my family's closest friends were Islamic. And there's just a clear distinction of Islamic people and radicalists. And
Mhm.
radicalists are not really concerned about religion. It's more about power and money and extorting people. And so my grandpa got kidnapped at a very young age from my mom, and he got waterboarded for 2 weeks. And my family offered ransom, offered businesses that he owned. My family lived a very wealthy lifestyle in Iraq. They had a 9-bedroom home with maids and people who were part of the family. And my grandpa had farms and restaurants and hotels and real estate, and and the radicalists just didn't like that. And so they let my grandpa go after 2 weeks of torturing him. And
Oh
he
my God.
said, I'm not going to even risk this. I'm not going to spend another day here. He sold his businesses for next to nothing, as much as he could. Still owns real estate that we can't get back 40 years later, 50 years later.
Wow.
And he loaded my mom and her 4 siblings from the ages of 5 to 10 years old. My mom had 4 siblings, including herself. And because he was a farmer, he loaded up his station wagon back then in, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s, with apples and milk crates. And it gives me goosebumps telling the story. My mom told me it so many times growing up. But my mom and my uncles and aunts, right, her siblings, were laying underneath these apple carriages, these milk crates filled with apples with just a canvas like covering them. And my mom told me about how they were at the border, and there was security and army military from the Iraqi government with AK-47s. And my grandma's in the front, my grandpa's driving, my mom's dad's driving, and he gets stopped and he said, hey, I'm just going to Jordan for the weekend to drop off some apples and sell these apples. I'm a farmer in this village. And they said, well, can we check your cargo? And hesitantly, he let them check the cargo. And thank God they just pulled back the canvas and saw the apples. But my mom said that the apples were going up and down as my parents were my mom and my aunts and uncles were breathing. They said they had to hold their breath for 30 seconds, and they felt like it was an eternity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they got to Jordan, they got through, thank God they got through, and nothing happened to them. But if they had been found, they would have been killed right on the spot. And if they knew and found out they were fleeing, right? Because the radicalists ran everything. Even if it was government, they ran everything. They scared the army, the local army there. And so, my mom lived in Jordan in refugee camps for 2 years in Beirut, Lebanon, which she said back then was the most beautiful place in the world. And she came here in 1974 and, moved from one of the most dangerous territories in the world to one of the most dangerous cities in the world, Detroit. And so,
wow.
Funny story, my mom was escaping and surviving only to come into a neighborhood where there's gun violence. And so my mom worked in a convenience store for 25 years in the worst area in Detroit. And I saw a lot of things that people shouldn't be seeing at the age that I was at. And it really changed me, and it really shaped who I was. And I developed PTSD from all the violence.
Yeah.
And my house burned down, and at that time my house burned down. My mom had breast cancer, and we were going to work in this violent surroundings, and I became the victim.
Yeah.
And my
And
mom
surviving.
became the victim.
Yeah.
And so what my sales training is all about is getting out of the victim mentality, getting out of survival, and recognizing that you're not your past, you're not all these things that are happening to you, they're actually happening for you and through you. And that's why my nonprofit's actually called Through You. It's all about getting people out of victimization and doing something about all the world problems when it comes to clean water and education and medicine, and how that, we have trillionaires now with Jeff Bezos, yet we still have structural issues with having clean water everywhere. And so, I related everything that I do with life happening for me and through you. And so that's why my sales training takes on this role of getting out of victimization from your past and not having the way you listen, communicate, and take actions consistent with the past, but giving up your identity that you inherited and creating a new identity for yourself where you actually are in control and choosing what you do, say, hear, communicate on the phone or in person in sales conversations. And to my surprise, it's actually been more beneficial than a lot of the sales training I was brought into with books and courses and sales trainers that my company that I worked for initially paid millions of dollars to have me get trained. And what I found out was the old sales paradigm based in survival. And what I teach is the new sales paradigm, which is based in authenticity. It's based in deep affinity, really creating a relationship with someone, getting vulnerable as I am today on
Yes.
the call with you,
Yes.
and how that creates a relationship where it's not about the outcome, it's not about the sale, but it's about what people want to create and what their life's in service of, and how you help them step into their vision and own their power. That's what my sales training is all about.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true because everything's energy. We all have a frequency, but if we're emanating the same thoughts and in that victim mentality, we're just going to keep creating more of that, which kind of goes back to why obviously your mom and your family kind of stepped into going right from survival into another city and state of survival. But it's so cool that you were able to see it as the win and see it as like, how can I shift into this as like you said, life happening for me, not to me, and making it a positive shift. That is freaking awesome, and so many more people need to know that and shift into that. But I think it can also be tough when your 3D reality and the visions you're seeing outside of you are happening, but you're like, but how do I change it? And you don't really know how. But I think that's why everyone really does need a coach in life, whether it is with sales or with personal life coaching or whatever. So what are some like maybe techniques or some things, if you don't mind sharing, maybe one or two little things, what would be something you dive into or something you help people with mindset wise, or maybe childhood trauma wise or something?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think you alluded to it with what you just said around coaching and everyone needs a coach. And, my first pillar in whatever I teach is language, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about and we'll come back to coaching, because I truly feel that when people see that they want a coach that can really help them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That coach can help them get to things and places that they didn't even know was possible, right? And we'll come back to that. And everything starts with language, right? When you go back to 5,000 years ago in the Assyrian Empire, right? And I have this tattoo, and I thought I never would get a tattoo, but I felt like tattoos were great for other people. They look beautiful on other people. I loved art.
Yeah,
I'm a big proponent in art,
me
and I
too.
really love that tattoos were on other people. I just never felt like I could get something that I truly connected with that I wouldn't resent years later, until I decided to just own who I was as an identity,
Me
as
too.
the as this Assyrian king in the modern world that's here to change people's lives. And my message, right? Communication and
Yes.
PTSD and what I went through being in trauma and victimization and developing these speech impediments and stutters when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I couldn't connect with anyone. And now I don't even skip a beat when I talk, because I've made it my whole purpose to help people, with communication, because I'm on the path with them and mastering it with them. And so I actually have this Assyrian king, which is Ashur-nazir-pal, which is the first Assyrian king,
I
right?
love it.
And he's in the form of a llama, so you can't quite see it, but it's a winged bull bird. And these statues used to sit in front of the palaces back in ancient Mesopotamia 5,500 years ago, when the first Assyrian king was around. After he had passed, they built these statues up because they were a polytheistic culture at the time, before Christianity made its influence. And these statues would ward off intruders because they were like 18-ton statues. Nobody knows how 5,000 years ago they built these 18-ton statues that were colorful and had the king's face on it. And people, because they were so big and they were so masterful with the way they were sculpted, they thought that these statues could come alive at any moment and attack you. And so these statues, if you ever have the honor and privilege to go to the Louvre Museum in France and Paris, or you go to the British Museum in England,
Oh, I gotta
in
go.
London, you will see these statues as the most revered part of their excavations from the colonial times, the Napoleon times. The statues from those cultures are like, people praise upon them and line up to see my culture. And I wasn't really connected with that as a kid. But when you go, not to get down this rabbit hole, but what I'm connecting to is that way back then, all we used to do was use communication, for things, right? Before we had government, before we had money, before we had all these things, what did we do? Well, we had people, and how we were in relation with each other was communication.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I teach is that language is everything, because the world got created when two people or more decided one thing in language.
Yes.
Right? Whether it was building a road, or having a building get created, or naming a village, right? Everything gets distinguished through language. That art piece, that microphone that you're using, everything uses language to distinguish what is and what is not, and what's important and what's not. And so we have to come to understand that our language, 99.9% of the time, was inherited by our environment.
Yes.
And so when we say things like I can't, or but, or I wish, all of those things are communicating to our psychology, our subconscious mind, right? Which we know from modern day science and psychology that our subconscious mind is 4,000 times stronger than our conscious self, up and alive through our five senses. It's no secret. Yeah. Everyone knows that at this point. If they don't, they just haven't read literature or exposed themselves enough, or they're still in disbelief and they're battling that. And I have sympathy for that. And that's my goal, is to raise awareness that your language is everything, and that it starts with language. So now, not to correct you or coach you or give you unsolicited advice, because nobody likes that. And so I invite you to consider no one needs coaching, right? When you get into the battle of need, it's a word that we inherited from the past, which means we didn't create it. We inherit it from people in our environment. And what that immediately does is put us in a conversation of self-worth. And we don't know that we are not good enough until something happens to us at a young age. And we assign some sort of perception, some sort of worldview, a lens that we take on that event, on life, and it runs us.
Look at you coaching me already in here. I love this. It's so true. Right. No, it's so good. Because
it's just demonstrated for the audience, right? This is the kind of stuff that I do. I cut in and I say, hey, I know we're on a podcast, but I'm here to transform lives. If I die today, I would have not made that difference. And I care less about how people think or feel or believe about something, and more about making that difference to the point where I almost will attract people that will give me negative feedback, because when you don't want advice and it's unsolicited, nobody wants it. And so human psychology, even I know that and respect that. And sometimes I have to kind of take a few steps back to take a few steps forward with people who don't receive the coaching as well as you do. So thank you.
No, of course. And I love it, because it just goes to show that you do know what you're doing. And I know all this stuff, but I'm human and we are programmed. And I still every day work on my programming, because I use languaging that I know is still subconscious. So, and I love that you checked me there and was like, oh, the word need, because it's so true. Like, it is a choice. And I think that it's, how do I reframe the word need? More like I welcome any coaching and really like and enjoy it, because I feel like it helps me get to higher levels of existence. And that's like ultimately why I'm living and why I want to be here, is just to like raise my frequency to the highest level and help other people get there as well, you know? And I think that what you're doing in your trainings, it goes so much deeper than the trainings and then the sales. Like, people kind of come out of your training like the way the girls did, and we're like, okay, this is so much deeper than we realized. And it's so true that it's just like like you said, all about languaging and really connecting and knowing yourself and self-worth and all of it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. It's, I really truly feel that a lot of times we know what can serve us, and we don't choose it because no other reason than unconscious patterns run human behavior, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people, read Charlie Munger's 25 Cognitive Biases. Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's business partner, one of the richest men in the world.
Okay.
And he really shows you what happens in, modern day psychology when we decide things based on phenomenons, and what errors, like these cognitive biases, are really just errors in our programming.
Right.
And the errors play themselves out where we talk about past successes, but not in a way that actually serves us.
Yes.
Right. We talk about us in a self-worth battle, right? Well, I used to have like a six-pack and now I don't. I used to do that for years because I was a college wrestler. I wrestled at the University of Chicago, and I was an all-state wrestler in high school. And for most of my life, I was like 6 or 7% body fat. Like,
Right.
and when I left college and I got into sales, I got unhealthy because I would just eat and sit. And that's why a lot of what I teach in sales is standing up and being healthy, right?
Yeah.
But I always used to say, I used to leverage my past, because one of the cognitive biases is leveraging your past in a way that it's an error where you don't do anything about it. Because you're living in the ego about where you were instead of being honest with yourself about what you want.
Yes.
Right? And so sometimes we want to look good. And so in our language, we say we want things. And in the end of the day, we don't realize that unconsciously, even if we want those things unconsciously, we keep doing the same patterns that don't serve us. And that's why I truly feel that if you want to change anywhere where you are, you have to get aware of what you're unaware of.
Yes.
Right? The things you don't know. And that's what I think the biggest benefit of hiring a coach is that if you want to get aware of what you're unaware of, the easiest way is to hire someone that's looking in the game.
Yeah.
And an example of this, and for your audience and listeners, I mean, whether you like sports or not, look at Phil Jackson. He only won 2 championships as a New York Knicks player. But when he coached Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, the 2 best players besides maybe LeBron James in the game of basketball, he won 9 rings. Right?
Yeah.
Between the 2 of them. Or at 6 with Jordan, and 5. He won 11 rings, actually. That's why his book was called 11 Rings. And he actually won 2 himself, so he really won 13 rings, right?
Damn.
So how did this basketball player that didn't have the results that these other guys do assemble a team and win more championships? Well, you don't have to technically have the results in order to coach someone, because of this idea of an impartial spectator. Someone who's looking outside in the stands into your game that can identify things that you can't see because they're in like your car's blind spot.
Yes.
Right? Just like when we are driving a car and we have a mirror, we can't see what's in our blind spot. We literally have to look over our shoulder. And that's what a coach does, is look over your shoulder for you without you turning your head.
I love that analogy. It's so true. It's so true. I go through it all the time because I love to help people and I'm always there to coach. But then when it comes to me, I'm like, but I know this stuff, but why can't I get it for myself?
Yeah. And it's the truth is I have 5 coaches myself and I'm a coach, right?
Right.
So why do I have 5 coaches? Well, hate him or like him. There's a lot of people who, don't like the polarizing online figure Tai Lopez because of his egotistical centered videos about cars and women and all that stuff, which he literally uses for marketing purposes and is doing something correct, because if he has people talking about him, whether that's negative or positive,
that's what I say.
All negative or positive, there's no such thing as bad media or bad journalism, right? People are talking about you, you're making money, you're growing, you're expanding. And so I actually had the privilege to, spend some time with him to consult him for free. I didn't know what I was signing up for. I didn't know who the guy was. I just knew his copywriter was super heart-centered guy, was very successful copywriter. He was a friend of mine. And I decided he's like, hey, I'm working with this big internet marketer. I build all his funnels. His name was Sean Bosser, actually. You guys should check him out. He's one of the best online marketers I've ever seen, best copywriters I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And he brought me to Tai Lopez's Beverly Hills mansion that he rented. And I spent the day with him and I got to know him. And one of the things, if you can't learn from someone you don't like, you can't learn from someone at all. Right. Really got to consider, if you don't like something about them, whether you're right or wrong, being right doesn't transform your life. Being right doesn't get you in a better place where you're more purpose driven and helping people. Being right doesn't actually serve us. Yet we hold on to it like it's the last thing, and we'll go to the grave to be right versus being in relation versus making an impact, right? So a lot of people are right about their relationship with their ex. They're right about their relationship with their mom or their dad. And
we're all mirrors. So it's like, what are you not acknowledging in yourself that is happening with that other person that you're not liking? So it really all comes down to you at the end of the day.
Yeah, it all comes down to you, and we all mirror each other, and sometimes it's something you got to shift within yourself, and sometimes it's not something you have to shift in yourself. It's more of something you have to shift in your perception of how you're looking at it and how it can be for you instead of happening to you. Yeah. And I think when people complain or are negative or they talk down about people that they're right about because they don't display the image of humility or whatever society says a good person is. They don't realize that, them doing that isn't serving the collective and the purpose, and it really doesn't give them any utility. And so it's actually an error in their perception, and that they should shift their focus on what they can learn and how they can grow and how they can use this as a benefit to help other people, instead of putting someone down and being negative and contributing to the problem instead of looking for the solution. So
Right.
Tai Lopez taught me one thing, and your whole audience, if they took this one thing from this podcast, it would make a huge difference. Is here's a guy that's making millions and millions of dollars, in the online space, and he has 5 coaches. He has a coach for fitness. He has a coach for copywriting. He has a coach for business. He has a coach for, building a team in his company. He has a coach for his spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
I truly feel that our unconscious patterns, what is our unconscious patterns as human beings? Well, if you look back 5,000 years ago when you were in the Assyrian Empire and someone came to your land and wanted to take your land, what did they use? Well, they used brute force. They used killing. They killed you for resources.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's how life was for thousands and thousands of years. And here we are, fast forward 4,000 or 5,000 years later, and we think that we're in a dangerous time with all that's going on. And it's unfortunate with all that's going on. But if you really look at the grand scheme of life, it's actually the safest time to ever be alive, even with the pandemic, even with all of the unfortunate things that are happening with, Black Lives Matter and, violence in the world and feminicide in Mexico. I hate hearing all that stuff that's happening, all the tyranny and the extortion and the violence and the killing and all of that unnecessary stuff that doesn't serve us as a collective. But the truth of the matter is, if you can put that aside and just look at the facts and not make it about me trying to shift your perception, and it doesn't matter those things. I'm not saying none of those things matter. I think it's tremendous. It all matters.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, when you look at the facts, we're in the safest time to ever live in society.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
and you have to go through the dark to get to the light. So I don't think people acknowledge that either.
Yeah.
And that time that I've had people
Say
come
more
to
on
me.
that. I would love to hear it. Say more on that. I love that.
Yeah, no, I've had people, come to me and just are like, well, how do you stay so positive? And why are you so happy? And why do you, and I'm like, because it's a choice. It really is. And like you said, life happens for you, not to you. And when you really believe that and you live your life through that, your whole world shifts and your whole world changes, and you live from a different perception. And then that's bringing it back to perception. Perception is everything. Perception creates your reality. Your thoughts become things. So when people are in this time of COVID and really focusing so in on these little details that they're being fed and spoon-fed by these media companies and news stations, and the election's coming up and all these extra things. And I have been researching mad things for 15 years. When I was 13 years old, I watched The Secret. I watched that stuff a long time ago because bringing it back to religion, I didn't believe that we were so separated and that they were there and we were here. I just thought it was bullshit, to be honest. And so it led me into this deeper, search for answers and seeking and wanting to know more. I could go way, way deeper into all that because I'm definitely into, quantum physics and the science of things. And Joe Dispenza, I love him. I'm obsessed with his teachings. And I go deep into the whole alien side and the energetics, because it really is, there is light and dark in everything. We're in this 3D reality right now, but we are really shifting, I believe, into more of a 5D, and you can look at that as a negative or positive way, because that word is being used and languaging in both avenues of wherever you want to take it. But I believe that from the light side of things, that we are really going through this shift and the darkness and this pandemic and all these horrible things because it needs to be brought into the light so that it can be healed, and that we can all start shifting and living healthier and better and high vibes. And
I love that. Yeah. It's all raising awareness. What we're unaware of, we can't really shift. And that's what I love about coaching, and what I took away from Tai is that you need coaches to point those things out where you can grow and expand, because we're all just victim to the survival from the past of having to accumulate resources with violence. And so, when we are so human beings by design are cynical and reserved. So we don't trust each other or what's going on, and we actually get resignation about it. to the extent where we don't do anything. And that's why it's so difficult for us without coaches, without habits that we develop that serve us over time to shift our behaviors. And I'm actually a really big Joe Dispenza fan. I actually had a really bad kickboxing injury a year and a half ago, and I was bedridden for like 2 months, and I got deeply, deeply obsessed with Joe Dispenza and his meditations, and they really altered my life in a way that was profound, where I really feel I rewired genetic.
Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. It happens when
brain.
you believe it, though. I have believed. I'm like, that was my first tattoo. Was my mom's writing in believe, because sorry, I pulled away from the mic there. But when you believe it happens. You can fucking change anything, and that's why if people could understand that concept, and I think more people are shifting into that and realizing that it's not about seeing to believe; it's about believing to see.
I love that. I really love that. That's really good, because, you know, what is we talked about cognitive bias on the call earlier. What is a cognitive bias? Well, it's something that when you see an information or a phenomenon or an event that occurs in your life, you decide something about it, right? Mm-hmm. And in that decision, you really create a perception and a point of view, a lens and a meaning behind what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And you will go in your life and look for proving yourself right with that meaning, to the extent where it doesn't really serve what you're up to and who you are as a person for the world. Right. And so we're all just victims of our cognitive biases that get developed by these phenomenons that we're exposed to in our environment, and they shape our personality. And the cool thing is, if it doesn't serve you, the first step is awareness. Like one of my mentors, John Asroff, I had the honor and privilege to be coached by him in the session. And he talked about, he does some amazing stuff with his neuro gym, where he retrains your mind and whatnot. And he built like a huge, I think, $1 billion real estate agent team in California, and made a crap ton of money and sold his business, and realized how much he was operating out of fear and all these unconscious patterns. And he decided to go on this path of rewiring his subconscious mind so that his self-image could be, up to the level of his worthiness of whatever he wanted in relationships and business and life. And he's on this amazing path to help people rewire all of those subconscious programming that really become, automatic from our past, and just keep running who we are. And that's why I love people like Joe Dispenza and John Asroff, because they show you the different elements of how you can actually shift your personality, how you can shift your behavior.
Right, in tangible ways, and making it happen. Yes,
yeah, real
absolutely.
Way.
Yeah.
That's tangible, and it's changing millions of people's lives. And I feel like there's just not enough of that when we're brought up in society. I feel like we're lied to. We're taught to go to school, get a job, work for somebody else, learn these low-income skill sets so you can build someone else's dream, not yours. And that's why I teach high-income skill sets. And the most important high-income skill set is the ability to persuade and influence people. And it starts with influencing yourself through your own communication. And if you can influence yourself and change the way you think, and you're on that path to transformation where there's no top, right? There's a mountain with no top. And yesterday's transformation is tomorrow's ego trip. And
yes.
Like my mentors teach me, and you're on this path, and you're taking people with you, and you're coaching and training, and you're getting coaching and training. And, and that's what we all want to do, is we want to self-actualize. We want to reach our potential. And the only way we can do is with each other. And a lot of times we don't see that possible, because we get into these modes where we perceive someone's hurting us, or they did hurt us, and we can't reframe it as this thing that can help us and serve us to assist others, and not making sure they don't go through the same thing, right? I really truly feel your mess in life is your message. My mess was communication, and my message is helping people master their communication, and so they can take ownership of their life, their finances, and do what they want to do: travel, work remote, give back, start a nonprofit, live your best life, like they say.
Yeah, and you said, it's funny because I'm going to reframe your words here. You said persuade, and I think people come from the wrong context with that in sales, and it's all about when you're saying those words in languaging, obviously we have to perceive it in a certain way, but it's all about your intention and where you're coming from while you're while you're selling and while you're persuading, but it really is not a bad thing when you're coming from a good place. I like to just preface with that. And I wanted to dive into, people I think they don't really realize that gratitude and giving back is also what so sets a tone for you to really be able to shift and move forward. And that brings me into throughyou.org. I would love to talk about that with you really quick. I know we don't have tons of time. We've got about like 10 minutes, but if you could dive into more about that and how I can give back, how we can get involved in stuff, because I think that is so freaking cool, and more people need to be more aware of what they do have and what they should be thankful for and how they can give back.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for asking about that. So, obviously growing up, my family were refugees from Iraq. I always heard that they didn't really have clean water when they were in the villages. They didn't have electricity, and life was really hard. And for me, the truth of the matter was my family worked so hard to get me out of that frame of reference and put me in, get us out of at age 10, we moved out of the ghetto. We moved to a nice place. My mom was poor, but she wanted to make sure we were in a safe place. So she literally had a condo in one of the richest areas in Michigan just so she can get us out of the ghetto. And it was funny because you thought we had money because we were in the same zip code, but when you went in our house, we had zero furniture. And we used to just heat the house with ovens. We used to we used to cut off, we used to not have air conditioning most of the time. And we were on 70-cent lunches at school. So nobody knew that we were really poor, but it was like people who like flex for no reason. They have like hundreds on the outside and singles on the inside. My mom did that not because of an ego thing, but to actually protect us from violence in Detroit and move us into an environment where she knew if we were around smart, successful people, like the parents of the schools we went to, like my friends' parents, right? They were all doctors, dentists, lawyers, surgeons, and business owners. And she knew if she put us in proximity that would rub off on us. And she was right. Little did I know, without a book, without a personal development book, without a coach, without a seminar, my mom knew that proximity, like Tony Robbins says, is power.
Yes, you got to take that first step too. And you don't have to see the full staircase, but just taking that step for you guys, I think, was huge.
Yeah, and so I didn't have this contextualization that my life was hard, even though I knew it was hard. But from the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that hard compared to what my mom was experiencing in these villages. And so I was like, I made a lot of money in my 20s doing sales for, a top Inc. 5,000 company, and I became the top producer there. In commission, I got paid out over $1 million in commission across a couple of years, And so I saved a bunch of money. I invested in some real estate. I traveled the world. And then I just got present to, after traveling to 25 countries, I became super depressed all of a sudden. And I didn't understand, why am I depressed? I have a lot of money in the bank for my age, right? At least I felt that way. And I have some real estate. I've seen the world. How come I'm in the middle of, beautiful, beautiful Budapest? And I'm
from there. I'm half Hungarian.
It's awesome that we're on the.
I'm Canadian, but sorry, keep going.
I remember you saying that. That's so cool. And it's funny because I'm in your home country, and I'm literally, it's the most beautiful place in the world. They have all these ancient ruin bars, and they have this beautiful architecture, and they have these spas, where spas are my favorite. Literally, spas are the things that bring me the most happiness. And I'm sitting in a spa depressed, and I'm like, how am I depressed? And I have just traveled the world, did all these things. And I realized, man, everybody's chasing this one day. And yes, is it fun to eat culture's food? Is it fun to travel and see new things? Yes. Is it cool to learn history and go to museums and architecture and talk with the locals? Yes. I'm not downplaying that. It's a very exciting thing.
But that goes to where we never get it done. We're always going to be moving forward to get to the next thing, to evolve.
I got that lesson. Intellectually, I knew about that lesson, that there's nothing to get. You got to fall in love with the process and progress. And I heard that a ton of times on 1,000 podcasts, and I never really enjoyed the journey. I never understood that. Right? You can intellectually understand something, but you can emotionally not get it. And emotionally, I did not step into it. And I was just so depressed, and I was so pissed off because I was like, this is it. What if I got this 20 years from now? Because most people spend 20 years to make $1 million.
Right.
And here I am just a few years, and I did it. And it's like, wow. this can't be it. This can't be all it. And then so I went on this path to like discover who I was and what I am for the world. And I did a lot of transformational education. I did some seminars, I did some boot camps. I started hiring mentors. I started, working with coaches, and I started working with energy healers and Reiki healers and bioenergy healers and people who were doing acupuncture. And I was trying to figure out how do I what's going on with my internal state that I'm not happy. And then I realized that I thought I had to get somewhere. I thought there was this place I had to get, and I had to show people how awesome I was. And no wonder I couldn't find the woman of my dreams. No wonder I was pushing women away, because it was making it all about me. And I realized life is not about you, and sales is not about you. And when I went to Mexico, I built a house in Ensenada with some buddies, and I fell in love with that process. And I said, wow, I love this, but then I have no contact with the family. How do I improve upon this journey? And then I met one of my best friends. His name is Chris Vasquez. And, I met him at a seminar, and we learned about each other's transformation. And we were both depressed after traveling to 25 countries. We literally had the same life, same story, made the same amount of money. We were almost the same age. And I was like, bro, this guy's my transformation brother. This guy helped me realize through each other's relationship that this isn't what life's about, and that life really happens for you, through me, and through you. And so we went to, he in the middle of the seminar, he said, I'm going to build a school in Africa, and my boy Johnny's going to help me. Who's in it with me? And
Yes.
I said, I'm in it. I'll build a school with you, bro. And I didn't even know the guy. And I stood up in the middle of the seminar in front of 300 people. And I was like, and then I said it, and then I was like, holy shit.
Yes, that energy just surged.
That's when I learned the power of declaration. Even though I read it in books like Think and Grow Rich, I learned the power of declaration. And I declared I was going to build a school, and I had no idea how to do it.
Yep.
But I believed and had faith that it was going to work out. And that's why I love the book Think and Grow Rich. If anybody's listening, you have to read that book. You have to be religious with that book. I actually have a copy right next to me, and I carry it everywhere I go. It's in my book bag.
I haven't read that yet. I got to read that.
Hold on. I literally have read it probably 52 times. And
I love it.
Everywhere I go.
Right? Yes. I've had friends that have told me to read it. So, okay, now I'm going to have to go get it.
So let me wrap up what I'm saying. So belief and faith is a big theme in that book. And, but I had the belief and faith. We had no idea how to build a school. And then we went to build a school. We figured it out. We worked with a company. We partnered with this nonprofit, and we took 18 beautiful souls with us. And 11 of them could not live life after we built that, school. I mean, the kids were banging on the bus. They had never even seen their own face. They were looking at our phones when we took pictures. They don't have mirrors. And it blew my mind that these kids are so happy and they don't see what they look like. And I realized how much we make it mean something when we're not like someone else, or we don't look good, or our hair is not as perfect as it could possibly be. And here they are, these kids are eating mango for breakfast, and then sema, which is just rice, for dinner. And then they have the biggest smiles. By the way, they have whiter teeth than us because they don't have refined sugars.
Yeah.
Okay. And so here these kids are, they have bad water, they have disease, they have malaria, the kids are dying, the parents are dying, and they have nothing. And here they are banging on the bus, singing and dancing for us to welcome them in their village. We slept into their homes, and we built this. And I never cried so much in my life. I thought I cried more when I was a kid. When I was in that village and they were singing the song, it was lemon, E-I-E. And they was like singing for us.
I have shivers.
Yeah. They were singing for us for hours. And I was like, wow, I realized at that moment what it means to be a human being. What it means to be a human being is who I am for other human beings.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not about me.
Yes.
It's about them.
Yes.
And that's when I got my first tattoo. It says Estamos on my arm, because it's like we are in this, like it's we. Right?
Yes. Oneness. We're all connected.
Yeah. And I gave up being this like egotistical, arrogant person. I committed to being this courageous, loving leader who attracts the most beautiful woman in the world, that actually makes an impact in the world and changes people's lives and is committed to transformation and not about me. And since then, I've made more income. I've impacted more lives than I ever have. And now I'm on this journey to show people that it's possible too, that they just need to alter their context, not their content in sales. So when companies come, they're like, teach my guys scripts, my strategies. And I say, yeah, I'll do that. I just straight up tell them I'll do that. And then I do that, and I alter their context first.
Yes.
And then I get their wives are hitting me up. They're like, what did you do to my husband? What did you do? I've been working on it.
What did you do?
I've been working on it for 10 years. What happened? How did you do that? He's different. And I'm like, no, he's not different. He's just accessed more of who he is because now he has tools. That's it.
Yes.
And that's what coaching, transformational education, the stuff that we don't learn in school. And that's what I'm on a mission of, is providing that recontextualization of who you are for the world, and get you out of scarcity and into purpose, and out of survival and into your mission, and out of your mess and into your message. And that's what I'm on the path and journey of.
You are just a freaking light warrior, and I'm so grateful that we have crossed paths, and this is so awesome. I'm so excited to like talk to you more and work with you more. So where can people go to work with you and find your stuff personally, and then as well for throughyou.org?
Yeah, you can go to throughyou.org or throughyou.org on Instagram, and you can hit us up. And, if you're interested in building a trek for your team and recontextualizing what life's like for you and your team, and having life be through you and through me, being your team members, being the me. And, you could hit us up and we can plan a trek. And if you want to work with me if you're a sales team, you're an entrepreneur, or you're just a salesperson, or you want to get in sales, but you had things like, it's too hard, it's not for me, I don't have the personality, I don't like selling makes me feel weird, I don't like asking people for money. Those are all perceptions and stories of selling things you don't believe in, selling things you're not passionate about. And so I would love to, even if you don't work with me, to alter the way you even see sales, and realize that sales is everything. And the most successful people who are happiest and own their freedom in their life have learned and mastered this skill set. And I can teach you how to do it in a way that's authentic, that doesn't sacrifice who you are, and actually feels good, where you can sleep at night and really change a lot of people and make a lot of money in the process. So you can hit me up on Instagram at @TheJohnnyAnton, or JohnnyAnton.com. That's JohnnyAnton.com.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Johnny. This was so great having you. I will definitely have you back again, and we will definitely be chatting more this week.
Yeah. I hope it was very valuable for your community, and I'm blessed to have you as a friend, and I'm so glad we crossed paths. I'm so excited to learn more about you and explore who you are and your journey and what path you've been on. I've heard a little bit, but I'd love to hear more. And I'm just excited to collaborate more and expand our friendship and our network together.
Absolutely. Yay. Okay, cool. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this was Quantum Magic TV. We are here every Monday at 12 p.m. PST. So make sure you stay tuned and join us. Have a great rest of your guys' day. Bye.